My name is Zulene Mayfield. I'm the chairperson of Chester Residents Concern for Quality Living. We are an environmental justice community-based organization in the city of Chester, but we have allies across the country. We collaborate with other organizations in an effort to protect our communities. So we just want to thank you for coming on and being with us today. I'm going to introduce you or pass it over to Tracy so that she can introduce her. She's our co-host.
Hello, I'm Tracy Carluccio. I'm Deputy Director of Delaware Riverkeeper Network, and we're working with Circle to try to get the word out to the public about what Penn America wants to do, what an LNG facility is. And so these sessions are being held in the communities that are being targeted. So thanks for joining tonight. We have a PowerPoint that I think Erica's going to put up, and then we'll go to questions and answers.
Great. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start out with some of the basics here, because not everybody's going to want to know what already knows what liquefied natural gas is. So liquefied natural gas, or LNG for short, is natural gas that has been cooled to a liquid state. And they have to freeze it down to about minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit. And they do that for shipping and for storage because it reduces the volume. And the volume of natural gas in its liquid state is about 600 to 620 times smaller than its volume in its gaseous state. So that makes it easier to transport, to put into a ship and send overseas, but it also makes it more explosive, much more dangerous. Next slide, please. So this is a typical LNG processing and export facility. This one is in Texas on the Gulf Coast, and you can see that it is a sprawling industrial site. This site covers about 1,000 acres, and the facility would produce at maximum more than they plan to produce at Penn America, but this is a typical size and look for an LNG processing and export facility. Next slide. So LNG is primarily made for export overseas. There are some small applications used domestically, but primarily the industry is driven by exporting it overseas in order to maximize the money that they can make on the LNG that they produce. And once it gets to overseas, it is regasified and it's used as an energy source primarily to produce electricity. This is a typical what they call a Moss freighter. And some of the LNG facility marine vessels that are even larger than this don't have those spheres. But when you see this, that's typically what an LNG marine vessel looks like. Next slide. So this is a two-berth export shipping terminal. Penn America has not said for sure the number of berths, but they show a picture, and we'll see it at one point, with one berth. But this is at Sabine Pass, and Cheniere Energy is the owner of it. And you can kind of see, the facility in the background there. This is on the Gulf Coast, and they're connected right to the water with these enormous ships that come in and get filled up by pipes from the liquefaction plant. Next slide. So how would we get the gas here if they were going to be sending it here? Well, there's different areas in Pennsylvania that produce gas. And as you probably know, Pennsylvania is the second largest gas producer in the United States, second only to Texas. And most of the shale gas is Marcellus shale. Some of it is Utica shale. And it was developed starting back in the late 2000s and really got going after 2010. You can see to the left there is the area to the southwestern part of Pennsylvania. That's where the wet gas is. And then the northern part that you see, which is northeastern and central Pennsylvania, is where mostly the gas is dry. And then they would put it into a pipeline, or they might use liquefied natural gas transport by rail cars. We don't really know how they would get it here, depending on what the location is that they're sending it to. But they would then send it through across Pennsylvania to our area here in southeastern Pennsylvania. Next slide. So if they were to build this facility in Chester, they would need to build an additional pipeline in order to connect the pipeline from the Eagle compressor, which is the Texas Eastern, or the energy, excuse me, the Texas Eastern pipeline. They would need to build a connection to get it down into Chester. If they were to build it in Eddystone, they already have a natural gas pipeline that goes there, because the Eagle, the plant that at Eddystone uses oil and gas in order to produce electricity at this time. Next slide. So what are the hazards of LNG? Well, there's a lot of them. It's highly flammable, and it's classified as a hazardous substance. Once it's released to the air, you can't control it. It expands 600 to 620 times the volume of the container that it was in. So it explodes outwards with a tremendous amount of energy. And it releases what's called a cold vapor cloud. And that vapor cloud can move very quickly. It's heavier than air. It can be moved in a ditch. It can move in a sewer. It can go across water. And if you're within proximity of that cold vapor cloud, you can actually have the oxygen robbed from your air and you will suffocate. And this can occur if you're within proximity, or if you're in an enclosed space where that cold vapor cloud invades. If that vapor cloud hits a spark, and it can be something like static electricity or turning the key on in your car, it will ignite. And the fire burns so hot it cannot be extinguished. As a matter of fact, the fire marshal advice on this is for you try to evacuate, and then you just let the fire burn. And typically a fire that's fueled by LNG will burn until all the gas is consumed, and you really can't stop it. Imagine that in a populated area. It also, if it explodes with the force of a bomb. And that's because there's so much energy packed into this vapor cloud that has been released. And that explosion can affect 1, 2, even up to 3 miles, depending on the geography, and depending, of course, on how much LNG is actually ignited and then exploded. Emergency responders, unfortunately, lack the equipment and the training in order to deal with this. There's been very little training provided, and particularly that's true for our area, because we have no LNG export facilities. We don't have the massive kind of LNG facility that Penn America wants to build here, and nobody has any experience, and the emergency responders and fire companies also don't have the equipment. So what are the pollution problems? Well, there is definite air pollution from LNG processing. And these are the parameters in a typical Pennsylvania DEP air quality plan for a proposed LNG liquefaction plant. This one was for the one that they wanted to build to send out in Pennsylvania, to send liquefied natural gas by rail over to Gibbstown in New Jersey. So you have particulate matter, 2.5, which is the most dangerous, the tiniest matter that gets down into your lungs and can cause very serious problems and lung failure. Particulate matter PM10, the larger particles. Nitrogen oxides, we all know and have heard about and have struggled with nitrogen oxides in our air in Chester, in the entire region of the Delaware River Valley, because we have too much of it. And nitrogen oxides would be emitted by the processing of LNG, adding to that burden. Sulfur dioxide would be emitted, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds together with nitrogen oxide leads to smog in the Code Orange day that we're having today. Ammonia And combined hazardous air pollutants was as a catch-all to say that there will be other air pollutants that are hazardous that are not even identified depending on the particular source of the gas and the type of processing that they're doing. Sulfuric acid is another, and of course, greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are emitted. LNG is made from natural gas. That is primarily 97% methane, and it's the most powerful of greenhouse gases in warming the atmosphere. It's 86 times more powerful than carbon, for instance, and it is a major source of atmospheric warming across the globe, and particularly here in Pennsylvania. So I think it's really important for us to understand that these air pollutants will be adding to our situation here in the Delaware Valley in a very big way because we fail to meet minimum air quality standards for ozone. Smog leads to code orange days, like I said, like we're having here today. And you'll hear more from Zulene about how that harms our health. We already have too much NOx and too many volatile organic compounds, and we can't tolerate another drop of it. Next slide, please. So are we going to play this now, Erica, or a little bit later, or?
Yeah, did you want to cover? I think we're going to segue now just to play a minute of this and then talk about the locations, the potential locations.
Okay.
Just play it.
I know. I'm working.
Breaking, this is the aftermath of an explosion that rocked a natural gas plant near Freeport.
I jumped up, looked out the window, and there was about a 300-foot fireball.
Just shook the house. The house moved, and nobody on this side of town was warned that there was any kind of explosion.
It was just an accident waiting to happen, and it's going to happen again if they don't fix all these problems.
We are in a heavily polluted area with all kind of health issues. This is no longer okay. We're going to do everything that we can do to fight. My name is Gwendolyn Jones. I was born and raised in Freeport, Texas.
The city of Freeport is a town about 13,000 people on the Texas Gulf Coast. We have beautiful rivers and beaches, but we are also surrounded with industry. So Ms. Gwen and I are members of Clean Air and Clean Water in Brazoria County. Part of what we do is to push back against these companies and help clean up our community.
So I can keep playing, but we can also put the link in the chat for anyone that wants to watch that full video. But that was an explosion that happened in Freeport, Texas in 2022. Okay.
Breaking, this is the aftermath of an explosion.
Bear with me. I'm trying to figure out like the next slide. There we go. Okay. Either Tracy or Zulene. This is the proposed site location in Chester.
Right. So, Zulene, do you want to take this, or I can take this?
No, I got it. Hi,
Okay.
everybody. This is a map of what they are proposing to do in the city of Chester. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty as to where Penn America actually wants to land. This was the original proposal. This was created and generated by their engineering firm and part of their package. And as you can see, they are trying to create a buffer and give themselves enough land. This would actually be a combined total of 200 acres of land. The green area that you see are equates out to 108 homes, 3 churches, a daycare, 7 businesses, 3 restaurants and bars, and several properties. Also, it would include taking of the local union hall for Local 413. Well, go ahead. Okay.
Okay. So this is the Eddystone site. So this is the approximate minimum footprint of Penn America LNG export facility, and it's overlain on 2 different slides here. This one is the Eddystone power plant site. Now, they have said they want to come to Eddystone, and there are really only 2 sites that are large. And this one, Eddystone, is 88 acres. The minimum that they would need in order to produce the 7 million metric tons per year of LNG that Penn America says they want to produce would be at least 200 acres. And that's without any buffering. That's just for the equipment and the infrastructure and the processing plant and all of the material storage that they would need in order to operate. So you could see it would take over 291. It would take over part of Eddystone itself. And there's just no way that it would fit onto that smaller square underneath there, which is the Eddystone site where you see those 2 little dots. Next slide, please. So this is the approximate size of 200 acres of the Penn America terminal, the minimum that they would need overlain on Penn Terminals, which is next door to the Eddystone power plant site. And this site already has warehouses built on it. There's other things there. Just like the Eddystone site still has 2 operating units on it. And as you can see, they would have to take over blocks of east of Eddystone in order to be able to fit this minimum 200 acres. They would have to take over 291. They just don't have the space there. So-
Okay, Tracy, with on the upper corners of that, those are actual homes. Those are where people live at. And it's very near, or I think maybe the school may be within that 200 acres. So they would definitely encroach upon where people are living. And as I said, we don't see a buffer there. So in addition, they would need to take even more homes because part of the regulations say that they have to have or should have a buffer area. Good.
Great, thanks. Yeah, next slide, please. So basically what Zulene and I are saying is there's no room in Eddystone for Penn America LNG. Eddystone Borough is 1 square mile of land area. 1 square mile is 640 acres. If they were to build a facility typical for LNG, they would use 1,000 acres. So there's no way they would ever be able to get 1,000 acres, which is the typical site here in Eddystone. Also want to point out that most of these facilities, such as the one at Cove Point in Maryland, have very large buffers around them. The Cove Point in Maryland facility produces about 2/3 of the amount that the Penn America site says they want to produce, and yet they have 1,000 acres around them. So it is just not possible physically for them to put the Penn America LNG facility in Eddystone. And I'll pass it back to you, Zulene. Next slide.
Okay. So Tracy mentioned Cove Point, and that's in Maryland, and that's the closest LNG facility, like what they're planning to put in Penn America. What is not around Cove Point are homes or residents. And that is the difference from what they are proposing doing either in Chester, Eddystone, or up in our Delco region. There are no homes around Cove Point. All right, so what are the impacts of pollution in our area? We have rising cancer rates between the refineries, the trash incinerator, the chemical plants. In addition to the airport, we have Boeing. We have a lot of industrial sites that sit on our waterfront that, nobody is looking at the pollution on top of pollution on top of pollution. They call that cumulative impacts. Nobody puts those together, but we know that it's affecting our health. Every time we go somewhere, we hear of these astronomical cancer rates. Also, in Chester, and that's just where we have some data for, the asthma rates in Chester are 5 times the national average. Erica, can you enlarge that any? All of these charts are on Circle's website, and you can go to chesterpaej.org in order to pull these down and get a look at them. We have put them out in Eddystone, particularly for Eddystone. Right now we have them for Marcus Hook, Trainer, Chester, and Eddystone, and other charts are being put together for Delaware County itself. Erica's going to try to enlarge that thing a little bit for us. All right, so why are we saying that they said they're coming to Eddystone? We have a newly elected senator. His name is McCormick. He took over for Bob Casey. And as you can see, Hodgkins, you can read it. The first rate is for the USA in total. Column in blue is for the state of Pennsylvania. In Delaware County, okay? So what this chart is saying is that for Hodgkin's lymphoma, for example, people in Eddystone have a 247% higher rate of contracting that particular cancer. Liver and bile cancer, 186% more than the national average. Thyroid cancer, 144%, the national average. Kidney, lung and bronchial cancer, colon and rectal cancer, urinary and bladder cancer, in addition to the other issues that may happen, such as respiratory illnesses, just the ill feeling of not feeling well. You know, we are breathing in dirty air, so that affects everything in our body. Go ahead, Eric. Next slide, honey.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So this is
And
just
these are the rates for the city of Chester.
so before you started reading the stats, you were talking about McCormick.
Yeah. Okay. McCormick is, do you have that op-ed you can put up?
Yeah, give me a second. Why don't you talk about it before I...
You know, he won the election and took KCC. Since he's been in office, at the hearings for Chris Wright, the very first thing that he said was that he wanted to see an LNG on the southeast corner of Pennsylvania. That means us. That's everything on Southeastern from Marcus Hook on up to Tenneco, Leicester. I don't think they can encroach on the airport, but Southwest Philly. They are not trying to go anywhere into Philadelphia. So Delaware County has been targeted. I'm trying to read where he said
Oh, yeah.
mentioned Eddystone. Okay, good. She just put that in the
Yeah,
chat.
there's it in the chat, and it's here. The more I travel across the Commonwealth, the more convinced I am become of the potential Pennsylvania has to guide America's energy future. Philadelphia Gas Works is working to export LNG through the Port of Philadelphia. Penn America and the Pennsylvania Building Trades are collaborating on a $7 billion project to build a new LNG export terminal along the Delaware River in Eddystone.
All right, thank you. And she put the article in the chat. So that's confirmation. We've been challenged on saying that we're putting out incorrect information. We have the receipts. There they are. We didn't say Eddystone. He said Eddystone. We have also learned that Frank James, the CEO of Penn America, has been having meetings with somebody in Eddystone. My understanding is that the people or the government leaders in Eddystone are saying that they have had no such meetings. Something is not correct. So I'm going to urge all of the Eddystone residents to really get on their leadership and find out what the hell is going on. Because they have not told you all anything about this proposal. And I think that that is done on purpose to keep you ignorant. If you're ignorant to anything, you can't fight it if you don't know anything about it until, they're building the facility, and then, the battle is half lost. Okay? You can go to the next slide, Erica. Did she fall off? And one of the things that they're talking about are jobs. I can tell you that from the research that we've done, that in order for you to be an LNG operator, that's, I think, the lowest thing in an LNG, you must first have 5 years of experience. They also want you to have different certifications. One certification I found was online. You had to pay $800 in order to get one certification. And there are many different levels of certification that you would need. We have found out that when they built the plant in Maryland, they issued the same promises of jobs, and 98% of their workforce came up from the Gulf. And, we're not saying that people should not have the ability to earn a living. We're saying that all money is not good money, and the money, and if you earn money this way with the potential of either blowing us up or taking our breath away, that's not a good deal for your community or my community. Now, what can you do? Get in touch with your local officials, the borough council people, and let them know you don't want this, or nor do you need this in your community. I will tell you that any LNG in our region is like playing Russian roulette. One, there's no emergency preparedness program. Two, there's no way, if they call these things incidents when something happens at these facilities, there's no mechanism where they can notify residents to either shelter in place and or to evacuate. And we all know if an order was given for our communities to evacuate, we got two routes. We got 291 and I-95. And we all have been on I-95 when there's been an accident, and you don't move. You don't move. Now, add on top of that, we've just lost 2 hospitals. 2. If a major accident happens in our communities, first of all, we have, there's a delay in care, if we can get care at all. So that's what we got for y'all today. We will certainly take questions now. You can either put them in the chat or please raise your hand, and we will do our very best to answer them. I don't see no hands going up. Y'all a little bit too quiet.
Hold on, I got questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, should I go?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
My name's Gene. I live in Eddystone. So I did see the one explosion. What's the history on these things happening? Is this the only one?
Oh, no. There are many of them. But worse, Gene, is the everyday living with it. The explosions are major incidents. I'm going to say on average, maybe 1 every 2 years. And I'm going to tell you this. Look, everything is good until it's not good. Outside of the explosions, The storage tanks that they keep this material in, they degrade over time. The pipes degrade over time. There are leakages. I have allies down in the Gulf in Louisiana and Texas, and we talk regularly about what it's like to live around an LNG. I was trying to get one of them to come on tonight, but it was a little bit too short notice. It is living hell. And every community where the LNGs are, they always talk about prosperity and putting funds into the community. Every community where these things are piss poor communities. They are poor, and their quality of life has diminished. Their children are sick. They are sick. The cancer rates in all of the communities are sky high. But people continuously are fighting back. I have one friend of mine, he's a third generation shrimper. And the shrimp in the Gulf has dramatically decreased. He was living near one LNG. They built one LNG near his property. His wife continuously has heart issues and is back and forth to the hospital. Then a proposal was to build another one. He made a decision to sell his land and try to move his wife into a healthier position. But in him selling his land, he moved an hour away from where he has to earn his living as a shrimper. And like I said, he was a shrimper, and he doesn't think that he will be able to continue in that business. His father was a shrimper, and his grandfather was. So it's dramatically changed their life. So outside of the explosions, there are leakages of pipes. Depending upon how they will move this product, if they put it on a train, they already call them train bombs, and the propensity for them to blow up. All it takes is one accident. You can look at the accident that happened in Palestine, Ohio, and that's an indicator of what could happen in a community. And I just think that I would not want anybody to take that risk.
Yeah, Zulene, I would just, excuse me.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Just wanted to add that today, Delaware Riverkeeper Network put out a action alert because the Trump administration has, through their executive orders, had the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration put out a notice for a rulemaking to try to overturn the ban on transporting LNG by rail. If people may know that there had been a long-standing ban on moving it to protect public safety, and it had been in place for many, many years. When Trump was elected in 2020, he adopted a rulemaking that overturned that ban. However, there was no LNG put on the rails. It wasn't enough time by the time he left office. And under the Biden administration, that rule was suspended. And also my organization and other organizations sued to try to overturn the Trump rule, which had done away with the ban, and we won. So just earlier this year, the decision was made by the court that the LNG by rail Trump rule was too dangerous. It was decided in a shabby way. They didn't do the proper studies. And now it is not legal to move LNG by rail. However, back comes Trump, and back comes the effort to try to put forward a new rule.
Bottom line, what Tracy is saying is that this stuff is highly, they said, this is the example that they use. They say that if 7 rail cars of LNG were to explode, it would be as powerful as a Hiroshima bomb. That is absolutely scary to me. And I don't care, what our financial status is. We have a right to live. We have a right to live safely. We have a right to ensure that our children and our seniors are safe. Everything's okay until it's not. Everything is okay.
So I'm going to put into the chat the action alert, and you can put comments on the record saying we want the ban to stay. So listen to what Zulene is saying. It's far too dangerous to allow this stuff to go on rail cars.
No, it's already been deemed that it's too dangerous. But
So-
right now, we have no help coming from the federal government as on protection for us.
That's right.
We are poor folks, so we're not billionaires and millionaires. They don't give a rat's ass about us. So now we have to apply a lot of pressure on our locals to do things that can protect us. And they can do it. They can do things with zoning. They can stop entertaining these clouds. They can stop entertaining and put out a definitive no. This is not for Delaware County. People say, oh, well, they say they're not going to bring it to Chester no more because of the local opposition. You damn right. We are the local opposition. We are it. And we're telling them no, not only for Chester. If they go to Eddystone, that's the equation of I'm sitting in my house and my neighbor's house is on fire. And I'm sitting there saying, oh, the neighbor house is on fire. And I'm going to just sit here. If that house burned down, my house burned down. Okay? Make it make sense. We have to fight, and we have to fight together. That's why we're coming to Eddystone. To help you all.
You said there's no one to regulate this?
Right now, they are rolling back all of the Environmental Protection Agency's regulations. They've gutted the EPA. So there is no inspectors, there's no enforcement, and they want to fast track anything that says LNG, oil, fossil fuel. And the hell with the regulations. They know it's not safe. That's why you don't see them everywhere, Gene. That's why you don't see them. That's why they're not up here. Tracy and them have been fighting one for about 6-7 years. Over in Gibbstown. We've been fighting one in Chester, what, 4 years now.
Is this, I'm not sure if this is part of it, and I guess I need to find this out, but is this an issue that towns don't have to discuss with the public? Like they have meetings before the actual public meetings. Would this be something that they wouldn't have to discuss until they actually vote on it?
I can tell you, I have heard from reliable sources that Penn America has had meetings in Eddystone with some Eddystone people. I don't know who those people are. None of the local officials have confessed that they've met with them. I find it highly unlikely that McCormick has put out an op-ed that went out to multiple papers across Pennsylvania that named Eddystone as the target now. He didn't pull that out of air because Eddystone, like Chester, don't even register on most of the damn maps.
Right.
He didn't pull it from air. So, I hope that you will get involved with us. We need, boots on the ground in Eddystone. We will do everything that we can. Everything. To get you all, and we will be a united force against this foolishness. Once again, it's poor people being sacrificed for a bunch of million and billionaires.
And just looking at the history over in Marcus Hook with the refineries over there, was that an issue? I know that's been there a while. Is that why they're looking at this area?
listen, I think that they're looking at this area because they think that you all are vulnerable. We've heard that they don't want to come to Chester no more because of local opposition. That was put in the paper in a Reuters article. Erica, if you have that article, put that in there too. They didn't name us, but we know who we are. We are the local opposition.
Zulene, it's Carol. I don't know if you guys can hear me, if anybody's seen anything about the House Bill number 502.
No,
Yeah,
we're not doing that right now.
I put it in someone sent me the
I understand that. Right now, we're not dealing with House Bill 502.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to discuss that tonight, but I will put our action alert in the chat if you'd like, Zulene.
Yeah, that right now is a little more too complicated. Okay. And we'll deal with that within the next couple of weeks. We do have yard signs that says no LNG. If you would like one, please put it in the chat or contact us directly, and we will make sure that you get a yard sign. Please talk to your neighbors about this issue. We had a meeting last week. Was it last week?
Yes, it was last week. Yes.
And the Steamfitters Union 420 kind of tried to take over the meeting. They were extremely disrespectful. They were disruptive. They came there with the intent on being disruptive so that we could not give this educational information to the residents. There had to be at least about 60 of them in that room, and that was okay. And we did what we had. We did what we came to anyway, which was to educate the residents. And so this is a follow-up without any interruptions, without any of the shenanigans.
You mentioned briefly on they try to offer the town something. What types of things did they try to offer? Do you know?
Well, when they were originally proposing to come to Chester, they had a breakdown of the millions of dollars that every year they would spend, for example, with Chester, then Delaware County, and then they would generate in the state of Pennsylvania. This is a big money deal, okay, for everybody involved, but the community that it will impact. For the city of Chester, they illustrated the life of the facility, which they were determining to be 20 years. For the life of the facility, they were saying that they would generate $13 million in revenue for the city of Chester. Well, that ain't nothing. That's nothing. When more opposition came out, they upped that figure. It went from 13 million over a 20-year span to now it's supposed to be $30 million a year.
Yeah, if everybody's dead, what difference does it make? You can't spend the money in the grave.
The math is not mathing.
Thank you.
It's not mathing.
All the hospital bills and x-rays.
No, if you can't breathe, you can't work.
Thank you.
And if you can't breathe, your children don't eat. You can't pay mortgage. And, if they're talking about, some high-paying jobs that will, be in six figures, those jobs are not the jobs that we're going to get because we're not, number one, qualified, nor do we have the experience. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tom, my friend, just put in there that many of the Gulf Coast communities don't even receive taxes from these LNGs being in their communities because what happens is that the polluters pay off the politicians by way of campaign donations or other ways, and the politicians create favorable policy for the polluters. And it's never at the benefit of communities. All of these corporations receive tax breaks. It's illustrated in Chester. We have the soccer stadium that pays no taxes to the city of Chester. And people wonder why we broke.
Wow. I never knew that.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a fact. It's a fact. And they sit on a Superfund site.
I don't think Widener plays anything into Chester.
No, they pay in something called in lieu of taxes.
Yes.
So we're not going to get into that. Is there another question? I really want to hear from the residents of Eddystone. Jean, please make sure that you link up with me and us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because we need
And
some boots on the ground watching, you know,
And
and
that's the thing that I'm thinking about and trying to strategize now, because it's very clear that that's what they want, because I've already heard people talking about it, and again, people are keeping tight-lipped about it, and no one's bringing it up because they're going to try to slide it in there.
That's how they try to operate. That's what Penn America was doing in Chester. They were operating and moving and slithering all across the state. They had met with the governor, Governor Wolf. They had met with people from the Department of Economic Development. They were meeting with various legislators. They had met with our mayor, Thaddeus Kirkland, at the time. So when we found that out, and how we knew about it is a reporter called for a comment on it, LNG. And I can tell you, as the head of this organization, I knew nothing about it. But baby, when we found out, we went into action. We challenged the mayor, and we went into council, and we pulled his campaign donation records and discovered that either from $15,000 to $18,000 Penn America had donated to his campaign. And we told him, whatever their donations, please don't let that influence your decisions on LNG. But he had already come out in the paper and said he was for rah, LNG. And being about as ignorant as a doorknob on what LNG was, what it did, the processes. He took the company propaganda. And that's what he ran his mouth on. The same thing that them union guys did at our town hall in Eddystone last week. Literally word for word, the company's propaganda on how safe it was, how clean it was.
But Zulene, Mr. Kirkland didn't last, did he?
No, his ass was not elected.
And now the mayor is opposed to the LNG facility.
Yes, he is.
And the mayor of Eddystone is from Chester.
Well, you know what? We need to go up in there in a council meeting and have the conversation with them and ask them where they stand at on this. That's where the heat and the pressure has to be applied. People in Eddystone have to let them know this is not something that we want for our community. And it's like this. We're not saying, if anybody wants it, let them stand up and say, rah, my community wants this. We demand to have it. How dare you deny us the economic benefits of this? But I'll guarantee you, them communities that got political resources, where these politicians live at, that are not being viewed as powerless because of their zip code or their bank account, they're not going to fight to get it in their community. But they'll fight to make sure that it's dumped in ours. And then demand of us, you guys really don't have a choice because you really need the economics. We may be broke, but we ain't damn it stupid.
That's right.
I don't want anything that nobody else wants.
Thank you.
In life, period. So.
You're not desperate.
Well, some people would take that as desperation. You know, we got to have this. We got to have this. It's going to be economic boom for Delaware County, blah, 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 blah. If it diminishes my lifespan, hell no. If it diminishes my quality of life, meaning at 40 and 50, I can't get up and do what I want to do, move because I have physical
Cancer.
ailments. Not because of anything I'm doing to myself, but because of the air that I breathe and the chemicals that I'm exposed to, what's in my soil, in my water, and in my air. Because people don't give a damn about people. Because there are a segment of population that are supposed to be the assigned risk. The assigned risk means that for a certain group of people, say 1,000 people, 20 of them people got to die, so the other 980 live comfortably. Well, that sounds good into it, unless you that damn 20, you in that 20.
And you know what? My children grew up with me sick, so they didn't have a mother. Now my grandson's mom is dying. She got 2 months to live, terminal cancer. So he's gonna grow up without a mom. You know, all of us living here in Chester, and it's just generation after generation of us either being sick, too sick to live a good life, or get cancer. She's only 40 years old, and her life is over.
God.
She's gonna be gone, and now she's got 5 babies. We got to figure out what to do with them.
I'm so sorry for that, Carolyn.
Yeah, this is tough.
And you know, and it's crazy because these stories are prevalent in our community. I'm going to tell you a story I told. I know a young lady who a cousin of hers died somewhere 40, 45 years old. They were at the funeral. This was 2 Mondays ago. And another cousin between the age of 35 and 40 had an asthma attack while at the funeral. Lost consciousness. They were performing full-fledged CPR, breaths and compressions. For whatever reason, I don't know the accuracy of it, but I was told that they waited 30 minutes for an ambulance. And the young lady died while attending a funeral for her cousin. That enrages me.
Yeah.
As does the story about Carolyn's daughter-in-law. 40.
I have one last question.
Mhm.
Do these plants take any special type of power to run?
They take a whole lot of power. They take a whole, and I am almost believing now. When I was growing up and grew up in Chester, it was a rarity. I don't give a damn what was happening through storms, hurricanes. We never ever lost power.
All right.
Now, on a continuing flow, if the wind broke too hard, Pico loses power. And I think it's because of these industrial sites that are now on the grid that weren't there before. That's knocking the power out. Brookhaven, Aston, Chester, Eddystone, Tennicum, all of Delaware County just can't seem to hold on to power. So that's another thing to think about. That's a quality of life issue.
Yeah, and they
When
would
people don't
use
think
natural.
it'd be, yes.
Sorry, Zulene. They would
Go
use
ahead.
frack gas, gas that they would frack from gas wells that we had on that map out in western and northeastern Pennsylvania. So it's dirty. It has those emissions that we saw on the slide there. Nitrogen oxide, for instance, which affects your respiratory health, your heart health, and neurological health.
And don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. I want everybody to realize this material is not for residential use. It's not for consumer use. But what it does though, because we're sending so much of this material overseas, it's making our energy prices go up. That's not my made up story. That's a fact. You know what, since we have him on, Tom, can you come on screen for a minute?
Hi, Miss Zulene. Hi, y'all.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name's Tom Owens. With an organization called Center for Oil and Gas Organizing, originally from Cambria County, which is the central part of the state that used to be heavily mined with coal, dealing with a lot of natural gas these days.
Wait for 1 second. Tracy,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming. We're going to do this again. We're going to keep doing it until we reach everybody, as many people as we can.
Yeah.
But I so appreciative of you coming and spending your time with us and your expertise and knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Looking forward to July.
All righty now.
At the Friends Meeting House. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Tracy.
Baby.
And I just dropped a link in the chat. This is a report that a really good group called Public Citizen just did, which really points the finger at the fact of exactly what Zulene said, which is this is going to raise people's prices, and it's already raising people's prices. So, you know, I really want to make sure that we can build in our organization's capacity as much of a movement behind that message. So if they don't live in Chester, they understand that they are impacted, even if they live far away. So, yeah.
So, Tom, could you tell everybody, you know, some of the organizations that you work with and where they are in the country? Because people have to know that this is not it's a local issue, but we have friends and we have power and we have allies that will stand in the gap for us.
My God, you do. Yeah, there are incredible people standing up, you know, all the way. You know, when you see where a lot of these facilities are located and being proposed, there are communities standing up left, right, and center. These are communities like Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana, where there are some incredible organizers like Royshetta Ozane, who, in addition to Travis Dardar, who Zulene mentioned, they are organizing fisher folk all and up and down the Gulf Coast. Freeport, which is in the community that was highlighted that had the explosion in 2022. They are fighting back. They are fighting for safety, for transparency of what happens if another explosion would occur? How would we know? Where would we get out? Are our emergency response plans in place? So there's incredible organizing happening there. Brownsville, Texas, where communities are on the border. So they are not just fighting LNG, they're fighting SpaceX, they're fighting Border Patrol. So you are part of a community of amazing folks standing up and making their voices heard. So.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? Don't let everybody hold back or else I'm gonna start dancing.
So as I'm in the chat, I'll start receiving information and contact information to, you know, talk and look at different events and things like that after I do my homework
I'm
here.
sure you went to our website and signed up, right? So you'll get the notifications. The next in-person meeting we having is July the 15th at 6 p.m. at the Providence Friends Meeting, 105 North Providence Road, Media. And we will, you know, send out a notification for that.
And Jean, we have an action planning meeting that meets every other Tuesday. It's kind of shifted a little bit because of these Tuesday LNG meetings, but the next one is July 1st at 6:30. I can add you to that email list too, where we do more of the planning of around our organizing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, will do. Thank you for being on.
I see Sister Mary Ann, somebody up here. Let me see. I'm trying to see where she's from. Oh. Dr. Fontaine.
And we will email a link to this recording after the meeting tomorrow, so you can share with other people. We'll also post it to our website.
All right. Are there any questions? Listen, I
I
know
think
that
everybody is like in a state of shock. I mean,
I
for
know,
real.
I know,
You know,
I
it's
know.
just too much to try to grab a hold of, that people could care that little about the lives of others, you know, and they will walk in a church and sit there, you know what I mean, and listen to the word about loving your brother as yourself, and then walk out and sign the papers to send us to our early deaths. It's just mind-boggling, you know, some of this stuff. You know, it's hard.
I just don't see I don't see how we don't have more resistance to this in town, and it's making me think all types of things. Like, you guys live
Jane, I'm
2
gonna tell
blocks
you
away.
again.
What's the
Listen,
issue?
I'm gonna tell you again. If you are ignorant, and ignorant has nothing to do with your educational level, if it's something that you don't know about, because nobody's putting the effort into educating you. Hey, this is going on. This is happening in your community. You would expect that the people who are in leadership, who were elected to safeguard you all, that's their charge. That's their job. Well, it's not happening yet. And we need to challenge them why it's not happening. And it may be a legitimate concern. Maybe Penn America's only meeting with one person on council who has influence over the others. We don't know yet. But when you go out and you share this with your neighbors, they're gonna be like, what? I didn't know that. We've been fighting in the incinerator for 33 years. And I still have people in my community saying, oh, I didn't know all of that was going on. They didn't know that was going on, but people in Russia and Germany and Ukraine know what's going on in the city of Chester. So, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but also as being the leader of this group, I have to be optimistic. You know, we can't run after the people that don't want to know about it, but we want to make available the information for those that really have a desire to learn and to protect themselves and to raise up their voice and to be active. I'm gonna tell you this. People always say we need numbers. We need 1 million people. We need 1,000 people to stand up. I don't believe that philosophy. I don't believe it. You know why? Because it always starts with one. One. And you can be that one. I'm that one. Everybody on here is that one. We that one. And I know I'm enough. We gonna give them hell till they leave us alone and let us breathe. And with that being said, I can't wait to meet you, Gene.
Absolutely.
I cannot wait to meet you.
Yeah.
And to get you involved.
Yeah.
David Peterson, one quick thing. PM 2.5 is not the most dangerous. PM, yeah, well, we know, David, but PM 2.5 is more now. I mean, people know more about that than PM 0.1. He wrote that as probably like a scientist. he a little bit deeper than most of us, okay? But thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. I put in the chat that we are happy we have flyers for Eddystone Delco. Like, we can drop off a stack if you want to hand them out to your neighbors, whoever.
And I want to say this additionally, like I said, we're all neighbors. We are all neighbors. We don't have the comfort of sitting back and saying, oh my God, all of that's going on in Chester. I'm glad it's not happening here. And you live right the hell next door to us. Make that make sense. You live right next door.
I wonder why Walmart and those major, because it's going to affect them big time.
I don't know. We're not getting into that right now, Carol.
Yeah.
That's a broader thing. They impact in Harris. So at some point or another, we're going to reach out to them too. Where y'all staying at on this?
Exactly.
Where y'all staying at? But right now it's, I always believe that God takes little people and do big things with us. Big things. Okay. We all heard about the story of David and Goliath. Y'all know who won, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We are the mini Davids. The mini Davids. So be encouraged, everybody. I know we're living in a tumultuous time. Breathe. It's okay to disconnect, get away from social media and that damn, my cousin called the TV the television, because all kind of hell come through it. But every now and then, let's take a breath and be optimistic. If we, if there's something that we can clarify, or because we're not scientists, we don't know everything. But damn it, we quick and good learners. Okay. And if we put information out there, we always have to reevaluate. Is it effective? Are we reaching people? Is it too technical? Is it over the top? Is it overwhelming people? And when you come on forums like this, you're like, oh my God, what do we do? Well, you join an organization like Circle, of which there is no organization like Circle, because we get shit done. We get it done. But I thank you all. I appreciate you all for coming on. I'm going to go